I have been intrigued that, look, it's hardly a flood. It's a barely noticeable trickle, but it is a trickle which is starting to flow a little more strongly, of the number of listeners who are using something like ChatGPT to respond to the discussions that we're having. I'm sent several paragraphs in response to a discussion point, and it's quite clear that this has been created by an artificial intelligence chatbot. And you go, if you don't know what your opinion is, if you have to ask ChatGPT or whatsoever what your opinion is, just listen to a music station where I like the song, I don't like the song, is about the only opinion you need to have. But, Vogue, the latest edition of Vogue, for the first time, has an AI-generated model on the cover. It's everywhere. And as we have talked about, my colleagues and I and other radio stations have talked about quite a lot over the last couple of years. I've had several conversations with Jacques Rousseau of UCT about UCTs and students using AI, non-conventional research methods. These are not research methods. They essentially cheating. And UCT was using something, software called Turnitin, AI detection software. And they've decided not to use it anymore. We're joined now by Professor Sioux Mckenna, Director of the Center for Postgraduate Studies at Rhodes University. Sioux, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, John. Thanks for having me with you.
It kind of makes sense because it was unreliable. It was not picking up stuff which was AI generated, and it was characterizing as AI generated stuff which wasn't. And so, how much getting it wrong can you allow before you say, nope, we're going to stop using it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people think that this AI detection can somehow read some metadata and figure out definitively that this is cheating. But actually all it does is it looks for the kinds of banal patterns that you yourself just mentioned when people send in 3 paragraphs with just, look, AI is getting more and more sophisticated by the minute. So I think that our sense that we can spot AI-generated text is definitely dubious. But that is how the AI detection works. And all it does is it looks for the kinds of patterns, it looks for certain words that get used repeatedly by large language models, and it flags it in that way. So many times students are being accused of something that they genuinely haven't done, and they immediately then feel shame and guilt and fear, and the expectation seems to be that they are guilty and they now need to prove themselves innocent. And this is obviously, in terms of the educational relationship, is just bizarre. It doesn't tackle the real issue of why and where students are using AI, which is what we need to be really engaging with.
And yeah, okay, so why are they? Because it's easier than doing the hard work, going to the library.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is the answer not as simple as that?
It is as simple as that. I think one of the issues, though, is as a society we have increasingly understood a university qualification as this piece of paper that I've paid for. I perform certain tasks and I get a piece of paper and it will give me social mobility and employment and so on. And it would be very hard to argue against that interpretation. But when that becomes the only understanding of what a university education is for, then it's completely understandable that students would think, well, I'll do whatever it takes to get that piece of paper, because there isn't that sort of understanding that actually there is both joy and power in undertaking the intellectual work and grappling with these complicated ideas and making them your own in a way that the AI takes away from you. And so I think we as academics have got the really hard job now of convincing students of the value of doing something that a computer can do for them.
The hard job, the impossible job, Sue. Look, I mean, that's a gross overgeneralization. Of course it is. But, I sound like such a crusty old fart now. But a lot of the modern world is about being easier, about not having to do the hard work. And I think it's going to be increasingly difficult for academics to do that work. That work is getting harder to say that there is value in intellectual engagement. There is value in walking into a stack of library books and pulling out 15 and connecting ideas between idea makers in different centuries around a particular core issue. Because life is so easy. It's at your fingertips. Life is streamed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that to some extent, universities have done themselves a disservice in the way that they've consistently spoken about their qualifications in a very narrow instrumentalist way. We do live in an era where everyone wants something as quickly as possible with the least amount of effort. But I do think it's possible to really demonstrate to students the joy of having that intellectual pursuit. It takes more effort as the lecturer. You're not just getting through a syllabus. You really are doing some kind of advocacy work to show students that when they are able to express an idea of their own and justify it and draw on the knowledge of the field to do so, that's an incredibly powerful thing to be able to do. But I mean, that's also alongside the reality that there is some aspects of academia that really is just gatekeeping and power plays. And we are inclined, I think, to sometimes value particular ways of writing that are a bit archaic maybe. And so I think we've got to walk some kind of middle ground. I don't think it's going to help our students to say absolutely no AI. It's an evil thing. It doesn't exist. We'll punish you if we catch you using it. But we really are going to have to do extremely hard work to convince our students that there are times when AI needs to be set aside because expertise is still going to be a valuable thing.
So you don't think there's a role for looking for better software than Turnitin, which is as close to 100% accurate as these things can be, to search for a way to disincentivize using AI through sanction for having been caught using AI? You don't think that is a road worth going down?
I think it's a road that is going to go down because the irony is that these AI companies that make money from their AI will make money from their AI detection. I mean, it's all the same. It's all the same industry. So they are going to go down that route and punt those products. But I don't think that will really address the root problem in much the same way that universities have for years used Turnitin to try and address plagiarism, which has been singularly ineffective and has oftentimes, the reason why it's banned from many big US colleges is that oftentimes there are people falsely accused. So I just think that acting as a set of detectives, catching our students is probably less effective than the much harder work of working with our students to convince them where and how they need to do it themselves and what will be to their benefit to have that level of expertise.
Sioux Mckenna, thank you very much for talking to us this afternoon, Professor of Higher Education Research at Rhodes University.